I'm Craig Williams. I'm here at Ministry of Salvation, and I came here for deliverance. I came here earlier, and the devil had talked me out of staying. I came all the way up, drove 2 hours at that time. I was living in Pennsylvania, but then I moved to Ohio. And I just went home. I took a picture of the church, was out in the parking lot, and went home. Drove back home. And then I came back up this time, and it was still difficult to get here. I mean, whenever I was standing in the door to come up, I thought to myself, well, why don't I just wait and go tomorrow? So, seriously. And but I made it up, and whenever I got here, Pastor Charles came, and we talked about an hour, and that demon manifested. It was actually manifesting out in the parking lot. Whenever I pulled up here, I got here at 12 a.m. and I stayed out in the car, and then it was manifesting out there. And like I said, Pastor Charles got in here, and we had talked about an hour, and I asked him for deliverance, and then Pastor Charles immediately went into warfare, and that devil manifested. It was speaking out of me. It was just doing all kinds of crazy stuff. And I was delivered of it. That's a gift from God. Deliverance is a miracle ministry. And I'm free now. That devil has tormented me my whole life. And how it got in, it was a bloodline devil. It came through. My family has a long history. One of my greats is George Mason. He was one of the founding fathers. He wrote the Declaration of Independence. He was heavily involved in the Masons. But my mom's grandfather, he started the Ku Klux Klan in the 20s. He came back with that. And then my grandfather, he was a Shriner. He was involved with NASA, but it was a bloodline devil. This was Leviathan. It came through the bloodline, and I had racial pride, and it started in the mid-90s with the History Channel and watching those war documentaries, and it just grew and grew and grew. Then I eventually got involved with these racial groups myself. Racial pride, I mean, I've got tattoos, all this stuff, and it just kept growing and growing and growing. And eventually it got me where I was just, I was consumed with pride. And Pastor Charles knew it. He told me a couple times on the phone, you have pride, you have pride. And then after I came to Christ, I was attacked physically by these devils. God just turned them loose on me, and I was being attacked physically. I was being cut up by him. This was December 14th of 2016. And then I got deliverance. It was like December 18th or so. I called deliverance and got deliverance. And I wasn't moving fast enough, so I called the guy back. I'm like, man, we got to do something. We got to do something. So he said, have you tried fasting? I said, yeah. Or I was like, yeah, that's a good idea. So I fasted for 3 days. And as soon as that fast was over, I mean as soon as it was over, I started puking, and the Lord came down to my right, and he said, these are audible. He said, these are trying times, my son. And I puked for 24 hours straight. And then I was like, so then I went to the hospital, and I had like this restless leg all over my body, and I was flipping in bed just back and forth. And then I went home that night, and the Lord came back above me again, and I was still, or before that, I was throwing myself on the ground whenever I left the hospital. I have scars from these devils where they were cutting me, but I was throwing myself down on the ground, throwing my hands up, crying my eyes out. I truly surrendered. At that point, I truly surrendered. And the Lord, that night, about 3 in the morning, the Lord came back again above me in the bed, and he said, depart from him. He's a son of God. and those devils left, those ones that were tormenting me then. And then I come up here and got delivered of the Leviathan, and now I feel better than I ever have in my life. Thank you, Father. And thanks for this ministry of salvation, and Pastor Charles and the fellowship that's here.